Welcome to Under the Lens. Come and enjoy an extraordinary, raw, and unfiltered podcast that delivers debate, discussions, and interviews about film, pop culture, and everything in between. Here is your host, film critic and journalist, Byron Lafayette.
Hello, all, and welcome back to Under the Lens. I am, of course, your host, Byron Lafayette, and we are going to be diving in here to part two of our two-part episode on Star Trek Picard Season 3. We're, of course, touching on a little bit of the entire series, but we've been mostly focused on Season 3, what we liked, what we didn't like. And I am joined today by my special guest, Jordan Morris. And if you listen to part one, then you will have got to know him a little bit. But he's going to be joining me for part two as we finish out our discussion on season 3 of Picard. So thanks for coming back to join me, Jordan.
Thanks for having me back, Bro Cutis. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to even more discussion.
Yeah, Bro Cutis is never going to get old, man. I'm going to laugh every time when I'm editing this, and I'm like, and I hear that again, I'm going to be laughing all over again.
I should have used that as my Twitter handle. Now that I think about it, I chose poorly on that one.
Man, well, we kind of finished up, the first episode of this two-part series, talking about kind of like our favorite aspects of Picard season 3, and we discussed a little bit of what they did with the Borg, and the twisted family dynamic and stuff, and so, I'd like to go into a little bit of, finishing out our favorite moments, and also kind of maybe going into a few things that maybe we didn't like this season, that we feel like maybe could have been done better, or, that we felt could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Overall, Jordan, what would you say is your top favorite moment in season 3 of Picard?
Is it a cop-out to say the entire season?
I don't think so, because I kind of feel that way too,
Like, there's nothing, like, it was everything I needed, wanted, whether I knew I needed it or wanted it, if that makes any sense. It was just so good to have everybody back. The story was great. There's nothing that beats being on a starship. It just was Star Trek at its finest.
Oh, that is absolutely true. Because I feel the same way. Like, if I had to nail down a couple of moments that stood out to me that I really liked, I of course I loved the scene when they all board the Enterprise and they all take their positions on the bridge. That moment hit me in the feels so much.
I've probably watched it like 300 times, and it hits me in the feels every single time. So yes, absolutely.
It was just something we'd always wanted to see this crew back together, and we knew they were coming back together. But honestly, I didn't know they were going to be coming back to the Enterprise. I figured they were going to be on the Titan or something like that the whole time. And so, like, seeing them back on that bridge, it was a very, very special moment for me.
Oh, absolutely! I couldn't agree more. The other standout, and maybe this is me being ignorant. The other standout moment is the vault, the Section 31 vault on Daystrom Station, where there's the Thaleron generator from Nemesis in the background, another Genesis device, and lo and behold, the body of James T. Kirk, which I think I screamed so loud I scared all the dogs in the neighborhood.
That is very true. There was a lot of people who missed that. And I remember I saw that and I was like, okay, wait a second. What the hell is Section 31 doing with Kirk's body? Like, aside like the creepy factor that they're keeping bodies in here, I was like, there's definitely a reason that they're keeping his body. And I was like, that was a moment where I was like, whoa. I literally I did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme of pointing at the TV. It was like, it was like, there's definitely another scene that stands out to me, just a little bit of just like the humor and just something that I did like appreciate a bit, with modern, Star Trek, that like I'm not one who really likes having like Star Trek swearing now, just like I don't
I
mind
agree.
it, but like there is a part of me that does, just kind of like, the old, more, a little bit more network TV friendly aspect of not having language and stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't, like, it's not a deal breaker. It doesn't really bother me, but I will have to admit, and I'll have to probably slap an explicit thing onto, onto this podcast rating. But I love Maddox's death scene. Where she
Yes,
where she
yes.
realizes it's all coming to a head, and she's just like fucking solids.
If, if if you do it where it's like perfectly timed and
Uh-huh.
used like they did there, it adds to it. You don't want to do it for the sake of doing it where it just
Mhm.
has no meaning. And they nailed it. And honestly, Vatic, we did not talk enough about. Amanda Plummer
Oh,
was great.
she was fantastic.
She was
Oh.
terrifying. She was just like, I wasn't overly familiar with her. I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't realize Christopher Plummer's daughter was such a prolific actor till
Mhm.
I saw the trailer. But yeah, she was an absolute delight and a highlight. And the other big thing I want to mention is the music this season. Oh
Oh
my
my
god.
gosh. Oh. I would say this is some of the best Trek music we've ever had. Like, it was
Oh, without a doubt.
incredible.
I completely agree.
Oh, there's so many soundtrack moments that stand out. Get Off My Bridge is amazing. There's just so many of them that are incredible. And I never expected, like, I mean, it's Star Trek, so I knew the music was going to be good. I mean, the Star Trek music is always good,
Hmm.
but they knocked it. I mean, like, this was a home run out of the park, and they never found the ball. Like, it
Oh
was
yeah,
just like, oh.
I couldn't agree more. They managed to blend. You had your Next Generation theme,
Mhm.
the space dock sequence from Search for Spock. Like
Oh,
they
mhm,
took the elements of all that and managed to integrate them with their original soundtrack, where it all felt organic and like
mhm,
it just fit perfectly. And
mhm.
it just I need to probably go ahead and order the vinyl or some
Same.
very of the
Mhm.
soundtrack because I've been listening to it on YouTube religiously.
Same, yes. I have it playing in the background all the time. I had it playing in the background as I was playing Star Trek Online, and that was just like a religious experience.
Awesome.
Oh man. Well, now one moment that I'm definitely interested to hear your points on, because I have a few moments for myself as well, and I'll let you kind of start off on it. Was there any moments of season 3 that you either outright disliked, or you felt maybe wasn't fleshed out enough, or you felt could have been done better?
There are a couple. A lot of what I want to talk about is more stuff I read after, like what we didn't get and maybe
Hmm.
could have gotten. But I'm not complaining about what we got. But uh, I'm surprised as many times as they name dropped Janeway, we didn't get a cameo.
Hmm.
Um,
Same. Hmm.
I'm okay with that. But if you're gonna say her, if you're gonna reference her that many times, it's felt like a little bit of a cop out. The biggest one, Justice for Laris. We got no resolution. Like,
Absolutely.
and
Hmm.
Orla Brady was wonderful in season 2, and I didn't know I would be so interested in an Irish Romulan, but I am, and I need more.
Hmm.
That's probably the biggest one. It's like, okay, Picard's back on friendly terms with Beverly, but is he with Beverly? Is he with Laris? What's going on? Are they moving to Chaltok 4? Like, there was no, they left that plot thread hanging. I could nitpick some other stuff. I thought about sometimes the last episode. It did resolve a little quickly, but upon rewatch, it really wasn't that bad. Um, like the other thing, I will say, not getting Walter Koenig to do a video, like film him on camera for
Hmm.
his cameo as Chekhov's son. It was great to have the audio, but like, don't half-ass it. Either do it or don't do it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
I agree. Yeah, having the Federation Zoom call would have been awesome, and yeah, I wonder why that didn't happen, because I am surprised at that.
Supposedly it came down to budget, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess I shouldn't complain. What we got is better than nothing, but
Mm-hmm.
you want a little bit more, you know?
No, I definitely I agree. Like I kind of felt, that definitely there was a few moments where, where I think that like you said, budget that, quite possibly with Walter, that maybe budget wise it was cheaper to have it be a voice than like appearing. Like I almost wondered a little bit too if that had something to do with uh oh, her name is escaping me now, the actress who played the Borg Queen. Uh,
Oh,
uh, oh,
you talk about Alice Krieger, the girl, the woman.
Alice Krieg, yeah. That like I was surprised to find out that she actually wasn't on set. That it was a different actress playing the Borg's body.
That
Um,
Yeah, because I was looking at her, I'm like,
mhm,
either their makeup was really good or she looks different now.
mhm,
So she didn't look bad, but it just was a little.
mhm.
It threw you off just a bit.
Yeah, and like I know that like like Alice Krieg, she's British, so it could have been a scheduling issue if she couldn't come back, come over to film possibly, but it also could have been a budget thing, that it was, like I said, it is cheaper when it's a voiceover, versus an in person appearance. So you definitely I feel you, on those issues. For me kind of my, a couple of complaints, I had is that, I agree with you that the final episode was a little rushed. Like you said, it wasn't anything where like I felt it hurt the narrative or anything. Um, but I would have probably liked it if maybe some of those, because we got like a lot of episodes where they were stuck in the gravity well, and
Yes.
and I kind of felt like maybe if they would have either maybe shortened that by one episode, or shortened those episodes a little bit to give us a little bit longer of a finale, because I did feel some of the Gravity Well episodes like drug a little bit. It wasn't where I was checking my watch or anything like that, but at the same time, like I would have maybe preferred to maybe pull back a little bit on that to maybe flesh out some of the later scenes, maybe. Um,
I completely agree. Like, they talk about, what happened to the Enterprise F? We see that shot of the D and what becomes the G, and there is a Odyssey class cruiser sitting there. Is that what's left of the F?
mhm,
You know, we saw ships explode in the battle with Space Dog. Did
mhm,
Starfleet? How many? What were the personnel losses for Starfleet? Is that why
mhm,
Jack got fast tracked? Like a
mhm.
little more exposition there at the end to tie up the loose ends and solidify the narrative at the end. I think I'm in agreement. It would have helped a good bit.
No, absolutely. Like I kind of feel like maybe just an extra 10 minutes, or even like,
Exactly.
just a 10 minutes of showing, like you said, some of the rebuilding some of these characters. And I am 100% on board with you with the justice for Laris. Like, I was in the exact same boat with you that I never expected to really care about her character as much as I did through those first two seasons. And I would have appreciated, because I realized she was in like the first episode, and stuff of season 3, but like I would have appreciated either, some kind of resolution of either, showing her in the finale of, a Picard, on a farm, or something, with her sitting next to him or something and kind of showing they're together. Or even just kind of cutting her loose in the first episode, of kind of showing their relationship. They decided, she's going off to this planet, he's not going. And so they kind of broke up type thing. I don't know. I would have
Exactly.
appreciated a little bit of resolution with that, because it definitely felt like they were building up to something with them together. Um, so I definitely would have liked that. Let's see, I think there was let's see, was there anything else? Yeah, so I think that's pretty much honestly it. Like I said, maybe shortening up the Gravity Well episodes a little bit extra stuff in the finale, Picard's relationship. And honestly, most of the rest of it I didn't have a lot. One other, I knew I was forgetting something. The one other thing that I felt did hurt the final episode a little bit, mostly for longtime fans of the Picard series, was that showcasing the Borg taking over the entirety of the Federation, basically. I did feel a glaring hole of not explaining what happened to Agnes's Borg collective.
That's a
Um,
really good point. Yeah, and because it ends up, I think of a lot of people ended up being confused. Like, wait, I thought we were on friendly terms with the Borg, and
mhm,
now you and I think followed it, but I can see where people got confused about how wait, is this the same Borg? Is it not? And
Mhm.
like, where are they? Like, there's no
Exactly.
mention at
Mhm.
all.
There was, yeah, no reference. And like, and when we last had seen her, she, her, basically she was like, we're going to help protect the Federation now. And she had a pretty large fleet, of ships and like drones with her. And so like I would have appreciated some type of explanation of either like, kind of like the cosmic Zoom call, of her saying we're on our way to Earth, but we're not going to get there in time or something, or even saying like, of maybe saying like they can't help us because they'll be corrupted by the Borg, by the Borg
Oh,
Queen.
that would have been a good. That would have been a good bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would have actually liked that, of like maybe of like, or even they wouldn't have even had to have them in. That I could have seen, something like like Riker saying like, "Hey, why don't we call our new allies in the collective to come?" And like Picard saying, "No, they won't be able to help. As soon as they come within range, the Queen will absorb them into the collective," or something like that. I don't know. I would have appreciated just a little bit of tie up with that to kind of explain why they weren't participating in that final battle. Like I said, just a small gripe, not anything that was huge, but I would have appreciated that.
Uh, that actually brought up another point I wanted to briefly hit on. So I don't know how, for those who aren't caught up. Spoil alert. So we've got the Borg basically assimilating and taking over in Picard season 3.
Mhm.
We have Control with a basically similar plot line in Discovery season 2,
Mhm.
and then the whole I don't remember what the name of the MacGuffin is. In Prodigy, which takes over the ship. It's a little too close, these three
Mhm.
plot lines. Um, I think Picard season 3 probably did it the best,
Mhm.
but, maybe like try to differentiate it up a little bit. Like we got
Mhm.
the criticisms of the first couple J.J. Abrams movies
Uh-huh.
because it's Star Trek, not Earth Orbit Trek. So just you don't want them to be quite as similar. But
Mhm.
honestly, like I thought of that like 2 weeks after it ended, so it's a very minor point.
No, I would agree with you, definitely. And like I feel like, they need to go one of two directions with that. Like I feel like they either need to, like you said, kind of start focusing on some other storylines, not involving, kind of the AI Borg type thing, or they need to wrap it into some storyline of something where they're all
Yes.
connected to the same villain in the future, maybe, or something. And I feel like they could kind of do that because in season 2 of Picard, Agnes and the board talk about that trans warp portal has opened up and they don't know who
Yes.
created it. And honestly, I thought that they were going to use that in the end of season 3, that was going to be where the Borg Queen was going to come in. I thought she was going to come through with her cube. Uh, and so that's what I thought it was going to be, but they didn't use that. So like, like you said, if they're going to be using these kind of very similar storylines, like I hope they tie them maybe all together into something in the future, or like you said, just kind of move on to something more, that hasn't been done quite as much.
That's a good point about that new transwarp conduit from the end
Mhm.
of season 2. This is pure speculation. I have no inside info. There's been hints of rumors of a giant crossover where everybody shows up, and I mean like
Mm.
everybody from every show. And
Uh-huh.
I didn't know if they were maybe saving that as the MacGuffin for whatever, and then that's how they bring Shatner and Scott
Ooh.
Bakula
Uh-huh.
back. Like supposedly it was supposed to be everybody who is still around, so we would get like maybe not Chris Pine in them, but
Mhm.
like there was rumors. If they've gone sort of quiet the last couple years, but it'll be interesting to see, like you said, if that comes back in the future.
That would, honestly, I would love some type of like in-game level, whether it's a film, honestly, like a film in theaters or a film on Paramount Plus, like something like that would be amazing. And that would be so cool.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
I would love that because there was a small moment where we got something like that in Star Trek Online, in this one season of story finale, and it was basically where you're fighting like this Borg cube type thing, and then it ends up that all of the basically these like portals, all of the heroes from all the different shows, you have like Voyager, you have all the Enterprises, everyone, and you all join together to fight. And it was such an amazing moment in the game. Like it was still like one of my favorite gaming moments, just like hearing all of the captains talking. It was so cool. And
I must have missed that mission. I'll have to pick your brain after this.
okay. It was very cool, and I would love like seeing that on screen. Big budget would be amazing, and honestly, that would be something that would unite every fan base, and it'd be cool being able to see the crew of the Enterprise again, of like from the Enterprise show. I would love to see them again. So we could probably do an entire another episode on Enterprise.
Oh, easily.
Oh, because I'm actually not as much of a hater of that show as a lot of people are. I actually find a lot to enjoy there.
Same.
Let's see. So yeah, so definitely, I think those are all fair criticisms, of Picard season 3. Nothing is going to be perfect, but I think like, they got as close to perfection as they could.
So close the Borg would be jealous.
Yes, so close the Borg would be jealous. I agree. Now, we touched on this a little bit before on kind of like, how season 3 handled Picard and his character and stuff. And I kind of like to kind of pull the zoom back a little bit, and kind of, like ask you your opinion of, now that, the Picard series is over, and has kind of closed the door on Picard as a character. Patrick Stewart said he might come back for cameos, in other shows possibly and stuff. But this is kind of the end of the road as for him as a lead. How do you feel all 3 of these seasons dealt with his character? Like, do you feel that this was a show worthy, of Jean-Luc Picard? Do you feel that it handled that he was great in it, and that that you were happy with his portrayal in it, or is this kind of like more a little bit of like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi? Like, how do you feel? And the answers might be the same if you like The Last Jedi, so I'm not sure.
I don't like the sequel trilogy, so they won't be quite the same. So that's a very interesting. That feels like this is a very loaded question. So, I love Picard season 3.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate season 1 and 2. It added a lot of depth to his character, like. Mm-hmm. Because it opens up season 1, and it's like, this is not the Jean-Luc you remember. And people go through all sorts of trials and tribulations in their life. And the fact that you see him, this icon in both, our real world and in the Star Trek world, is just like a broken man. Like, he was trying to save all those Romulans, and basically he said, we've got to do this. And they told him to piss off. And he said, fine, I'll resign. And they called his bluff. And, and then he goes to that, when he meets Elnor on that Romulan refugee world, how many tens of thousands, if not millions, did he help save before the tragedy on Mars? And they still hate him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it really added a lot of depth. Like, it showed that our heroes are actually human too. And he's got, regrets. He's made mistakes. It added a lot to it, but you don't want to hit the trope where the only way to make a legacy character interesting is to make them failures, like The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Because that is a poor trope, and it's overdone, and most people don't like it. But he redeemed himself. The whole bring the Irumodic Syndrome back was interesting, and then actually how they played into it where it wasn't Irumodic Syndrome in season 3, really liked that.
I really liked that as well. I thought that was a great callback to not only season 1 of Picard, but also to the show as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. And now the season 2, him dealing with, as people say, Patrick Stewart's multi-million-dollar therapy sessions, which, there's nothing wrong with. It went a little dark for my taste. Though I'll give them credit. Like, there's that scene in one of the early Next Generations where he sees his mother as an old woman, but they actually explain it, which I'm like, okay. I did like, because Patrick Stewart's father had that whole, he was a World War II vet. There was a troubled marriage, and the guy had PTSD before we knew what PTSD was, his father. And actually, there's a really interesting, if anybody's familiar with Who Do You Think You Are, it's like a genealogy type show. There's a British version and a US version. And Patrick Stewart's on the British version. and he actually found out all sorts of things about his father. Like his father went through the ringer, and back in the day, you were, if you had shell shock, as they called it back then, you were institutionalized, lobotomized. It was not good.
Mm-hmm.
So in learning more, he forgave his father, and it's sort of, I do like how that came into the show, and he was able to overcome childhood traumas. Did it get a bit dark? Yes, but he was able to overcome, and getting James Callis, Baltar, to play his dad,
Oh, that was so good.
that was brilliant. That was brilliant. Um, but it added a lot of depth and complexity, particularly in season 2. Season 1, he's waiting to die. He comes back. He deals with his own mortality and tries to redeem himself in his eyes at least one more time. Um, the whole synth, but I don't have a problem with the synth body. It was a little too telegraphed, in my opinion. Not quite to the bad levels of Superblood and Star Trek Into Darkness, but we weren't far from that. Star Trek fans aren't stupid. You're better not to treat them like they're stupid.
That's very true.
But it added a lot of depth and complexity to his character. And then, like we touched on for season 3, like, oh, he is a father, and this is a whole side of him he wasn't expecting that is thrust upon him, and how's he going to react? And we get to see how that plays out. So overall, I have enjoyed this show. Is it perfect? No, but I mean, hey, do we remember season 1 and 2 of Next Generation? The Star Trek trope is it normally takes to about season 3 for them to find their footing, other than the original series, of course. But yeah, I would deem it a success.
No, I would honestly mostly agree with you on everything because, I definitely, when I went into season 1, I was definitely very surprised when it started. It was not what I know that Patrick Stewart had said, don't expect, TNG. This is completely different, but I was very surprised with the direction they went with it. It almost felt in some ways that they didn't know if they were getting more seasons because, like, honestly, like, season 1 of Picard could have easily been a mini series the way it ended.
Good point.
And stuff, but it was like, I generally did like you said, I'm starting to get a little tired of the deconstruction of our heroes trope. I definitely don't mind a good deconstruction, but it does feel like it's happening more and more and more, and so I'm getting a little weary of it now, especially, like you said, with the way other franchises have handled it. But when it is done well, I do like it, cough top,
absolutely,
sequel trilogy. But overall, I felt they handled his character well. I did appreciate that season 1 of Picard didn't make us wait till the absolute end to see Picard come back, as like the heroic captain that we knew. I appreciated that we got to see him come back into form a little bit earlier. But yeah, season 2 was dark. Definitely. I was surprised at some of the depths that they went with that. I had read a little bit about, Patrick Stewart's, trauma and his childhood and stuff. So I definitely could see elements of that playing out. But like, I was very interested and I did appreciate kind of going in more of just looking at what made Jean-Luc who he was. Like, as Q kind of says, why did you look to the stars? Why did you go to the stars? And it kind of shows like why he did. And so I did appreciate that. And not to mention, season 2 of Picard does provide one of my favorite moments in Star Trek, when Picard and Q are seated in I think it's the solarium talking. And Picard basically says, like, why did all of this happen? Is something going to happen that I need to be aware of? And I love that when Q says, why does everything need to have galactic importance? Can it be about one person? And he looks at him and he says, because you matter to me, and I was just like, oh,
that was great.
Oh, it was such a great moment. And I loved seeing that and kind of seeing that other side of Q, and I adored that moment. I thought that was a really well done scene for Trek.
I agree. And jokingly aside, but I sort of almost felt that was almost kind of a pot shot at Discovery.
Yeah.
Just like probably not intentionally, but
Mhm.
no, that was a great scene. The one thing I am glad they fixed from season 1 to 2, when Rafi calls him JL, there is no way Jean-Luc would ever let anybody refer to him as JL
I agree.
ever. So like, I'm glad they nipped that in the bud. Like, okay, his
Mhm.
character's a lot's changed, but that hasn't.
Mhm. No, I completely agree. That because that is something, yeah, Picard would have never gone for. He's way too prim and proper for that.
Exactly.
Oh, you know, and one thing I am glad that they toned down in season 3 as well, was I was kind of glad that they toned down the relationship between Seven and Rafi. Not that I cared about them being in a relationship, but I felt like they didn't feel like they went together too well. I don't know. I felt like there wasn't a lot of chemistry between them.
There wasn't. I
You know?
completely agree. Like,
Mhm.
it came out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like it was very forced.
Hmm.
And Michelle Hurd and Jerry Ryan are both excellent actresses, but it
Oh,
just seemed
very.
like an odd pairing, and
Mhm.
they just it just didn't. It wasn't believable.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That was the way I felt about it. I was glad that they kind of drew back a little bit from that in season 3 and didn't devote a huge amount of time to it. If they want to further develop it in Star Trek Legacy or something, that's fine. But yeah, I was glad that didn't take away, because like like I said, it's just they're both great actresses, and I loved their characters. I thought their characters were fantastic. But yeah, there just wasn't enough foundation, I thought, for that to kind of justify what they were trying to go for. But yeah, I mean, overall, I felt the whole series was was a win, for looking introspectively, at the character of Jean-Luc. A few things I would have done differently, maybe a few things I wouldn't have focused on quite as much, but you know, I would definitely say that the Picard series, in my opinion, is one of the best returns of legacy characters, of a legacy character and legacy characters, probably, that I've seen in recent memory.
That's a great way to phrase it, and I agree. So it's the way I would balance the scale in my head, and feel free to interject, is the bottom end is the Star Wars sequel trilogies, which
Mhm.
we've hinted at multiple times, whereas the high end is your Top Gun Maverick.
Mhm.
And I would definitely like, if one being like, oh, 0 or 1 on the sequel trilogy versus a 10, I would like, on a bad day, I would say, what would you say, maybe an 8 on the Legacy sequel on that scale? 8 or 9. It's one of the better done ones. Sometimes they hit, and sometimes, most of the time, unfortunately, they have not.
Mhm. It is true, yeah, because like it feels like they either go too much in the other direction, almost like of the sequel trilogy. Oh, we have to tear these down in order to press our new heroes up. That it was like that it just didn't work, and I just would have rather the legacy characters never came back. And then you have the amazing, like you said, Top Gun Maverick, which is 10 out of 10, incredible the way they wrote that and did that. um that Yeah, I think that Picard, I would agree with that 8 out of 10. I think it worked really really well. And one other legacy character return too that I would probably add to the list would be maybe Jurassic World Dominion. Bringing back all of its legacy characters too. That was another one that people had opinions on. Some loved
Good
it,
good
some
point.
didn't.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, it
Mhm.
was that was pretty well done.
It was, yeah. Like, well, I had issues with the story being a little bit weak here and there. I honestly didn't have a lot of issues with the legacy characters. I thought they were all a lot of fun. They were back. They wrote them well, and so I would probably put that on like maybe the 6 level. 6.5.
I
Yeah.
think you nailed it. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
on the upper end. It's not
Mhm.
quite as high as Picard or
Mhm.
obviously Top Gun Maverick.
Mhm. But yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm very, very happy, that Star Trek has been kind of getting into its groove. It had a little bit of a rough, new Trek, I guess you could say, has had a bit of a rough patch, getting started, with some issues with Discovery and stuff. But I really feel like with Strange New Worlds, with Picard season 3, with Lower Decks, they're really hitting they're hitting all the high points with this return.
Absolutely. And there's a variety. So like I know some people like some shows, some people don't like others, and the beauty of it is there is a Star Trek show out there for everyone now.
Hmm.
Like I love the clever references for Lower Decks. It took me a while to realize I was never a big Rick and Morty fan,
Hmm.
but I'm like it's a joking tribute. It's not making fun of the source material. It's just a hilarious tribute, which I think a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around.
Hmm.
Um, but no, like you said, they've really seemed to hit their stride between Stranger Worlds, Picard season 3, Lower Decks, and it's a good time to be a Star Trek fan. I feel like we're in the second golden age of Trek, from the first being in the probably would say late '90s.
Hmm. No, I would absolutely agree. Yeah, like this is definitely an amazing time to be a Star Trek fan, and and like I said, generally I've somewhat liked elements of all of new Trek. Like Discovery is probably my least favorite.
Same.
I dropped out in season 3. I loved season 1 and 2. I thought I had aside from like how the Klingons looked and everything like that, overall I had a great time with the story. I thought it was a lot of fun. Like I said, the change in season 3 just wasn't for me. I know there's a lot of fans who really like it, and I'm glad they have a show that they enjoy.
You'd be better to skip season 4 is better than 3. You could read
Okay.
the plot. I'd skip 3 and go to 4. 3 is not
Okay.
bad, but 4 is better.
Okay, I'll do that then, because like I don't like to skip any Star Trek.
Same.
I want to see it all, so maybe I'll just do that, skip to 4, because especially with Discovery ending, I would like I said, I was a big fan. The first 2 seasons, I'd like to see how it ends. So I'll do that. I'll skip to 4 and just kind of go through. And as the youngins would say, we're eating good. With the Strange New
Hmm.
World season 2 coming out. I think Lower Decks is coming out next summer. This summer, I think, the new season. I can't
August, I
remember. August.
believe.
So, and this is honestly kind of a perfect kind of segue as we kind of reach the end of the episode of talking a little bit about Star Trek Legacy. And for those of you who may have watched Picard season 3 but aren't completely familiar, Star Trek Legacy is basically what a lot of the fans, the cast, the filmmakers, the showrunners are referring to as this kind of continuation of the world of Star Trek Picard. The final the series finale kind of ends setting up a new crew on the Enterprise, on a new Enterprise, where Seven of Nine is the captain. Jack Crusher is kind of this like kind of special envoy of the captain type thing. Rafi, I believe, is number 1, I believe. And then you have other characters, Geordie's daughter, and some other ones who are going to be in the crew of that. And so, of course, as soon as us Star Trek fans saw that, we immediately melted down and were like, we want a series. It's like, and from what we can see, the showrunner has gotten on board with it. He said he would love to do it. A lot of the cast members have been saying they would love to come back. And so that kind of leads into a little bit of a conversation here of kind of like, Jordan, what would you like to see in the future of Trek? Is it a Star Trek Legacy full-on show? Is it a movie? Is it spin-off miniseries? Like what would you like to see with these characters? Because I know you're like me, that you want to see more of them.
The answer is yes to everything you just said. I want it all, but if I have to pick, I mean, we need something. I mean, so the petition, which has now hit over 53,000 signatures, I believe it's over 50. Jerry Ryan tweeted it, and I replied, "Shut up and take my money," and she immediately liked my comment. So day made there.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, like there's just so much potential. We can bring back Next Generation, DS9, Voyager characters. What's Barclay up to? Do we finally get to see Cisco come back? There's so much possibility. Like, and it could be literally anything. Like the return of Cisco is probably a big enough event for more than just like a 2-parter at the minimum. But even so, you need, I think, a bit more than that. Um, there's so many characters we can touch on their children. Like, you recall in Next Generation where Riker had a fling with Ro Laren.
Yes.
Now, what if we got now? Ro is probably dead. They wanted to bring her back, but I don't think Michelle Forbes wanted to do that. And she was supposed to show up with Tuvok in a dungeon in the last episode, but it got cut. What if Ro ended up with Thomas Riker and you meet their child?
Ooh.
Like, so you could see Jonathan Frakes in a totally different role. Well, not totally different, but you know what I mean. And like, it would be an interesting way to subvert expectations, as we were talking about earlier. But like you said, movies, whatever we can get, I'm here for. The more, the merrier. There's so much story potential. Like, the actors are all up for it, and I mean, Jerry Ryan they brought her on as eye candy back on Voyager, and she has developed into quite a talented actress. And I mean, Michelle Hurd's great, as long as they don't. Just quick sidebar: is it just me, or did you feel like Rafi was basically Star Trek Picard's O'Brien, where she had to suffer constantly?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes,
nothing good ever happened to that poor woman, and you wonder why she was the way she was, and she finally gets a happy ending.
I was so happy that she got that ending, because it was just like she was constantly being beat up, and speaking of her character, one thing too, and this might just be me completely reading into things that aren't there possibly, but like, I really enjoyed her interactions with Worf, and I felt like kind of like him training her in the Klingon fighting and stuff like that. I felt like the way they styled her hair at the end felt very Klingon. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it, but like her hairstyle, the way they tied it back was how Klingons normally wear it.
You're right. I haven't thought about that, but that's a really interesting thought. I did not consider that, but you're 100% correct.
And so I kind of thought, I was like, man, if they kind of took her in this kind of like warrior monk type thing, almost like a Klingon, a human Klingon almost, I don't know, I would be totally down for that. Like, I think that would be really cool. They take her to like a monastery on Borath or something. Like, how cool would that be,
I've had several people ask me about it. Is like, did you detect like romantic undertones between her and Worf? Like, not a ton, but like, could there be potential? Maybe.
I kind of picked up a few things with there. Yeah, like I don't feel like that was an accident. Like, there was chemistry there, definitely, and it felt like they were that they were playing into it. And honestly, like, I would be all down for something like that.
They would be a really they're a better match than she and Seven of Nine.
I would agree. Yeah. Like, I would definitely agree. That would be very, very interesting. And kind of like what we were saying, like, I think if there's so many characters and there's so much potential for this post Picard world. And one thing that I did like was hearing, the showrunner, and hearing like, Akiva Goldsmith, talking about, the future of Star Trek. I loved how they said, yeah, we might do TV series, we might do streaming movies, we might do character driven miniseries. Like, that just set my imagination on fire, because especially like what you just said, like, hey, we could do a mini series of Worf and Rafi going off on like intelligence missions or something, or like you said, do a streaming movie of Rollaren and Riker and stuff. Like, that'd be so interesting to see that kind of stuff.
I read some speculation about, what if we got a streaming movie that shows what happened to Worf in the Enterprise E? And I'm like, ooh, like, because there'll be at least a book for that, I'm sure, sometime in the near future.
Now, wouldn't that be amazing because I know that Worf, that Michael Dorn has pitched like a Worf series for a lot of years. And I remember he basically said, somebody at a convention asked him what it was, and he's like, it would be Worf on the outer edges of Federation space fighting terrorists. And I was like, okay, here's my money. I want to see it.
That literally sounds like Worf meets 24.
Exactly.
And I am totally here for that.
I am here. I'm so for it. Can you imagine how cool that would be if maybe that was a movie of that's what happened to the Enterprise E, maybe, that like, you know, like maybe he was the standing captain for a bit or something, and he went off on these missions fighting terrorists and something happened. I don't know. Like there's so much potential with stuff, you know.
And we've only hit on a couple characters.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have we need to have Data meet Soji and the other androids on the
Absolutely.
planet from the end of season 1. Like
Mm-hmm.
Data literally has a herd at this
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah.
Like they need to meet their dad, who now has their uncle and their stepdad. Like, however, that weird the family dynamic will be interesting. But like,
Oh.
there's so much that would be a really interesting episode. You know, whatever happened to the EMH? I mean, we've seen Tuvok. The EMH would be. I mean, I actually read recently. So when in season 2, when they jumped to the Confederation timeline,
Mm-hmm.
they actually asked Robert Beltran if he would come back and play Seven's President Hansen's husband in the alternate
Oh.
universe.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think he wanted to be a bad guy or a bit part. But
Uh-huh.
I'm like,
Oh,
oh man, like
that would have been cool. Oh.
exactly, like, and
Oh,
but there's like we said, there are so many characters. They were, again, pardon the pun, Spock would say there are infinite possibilities here. Like there's just so much. I mean, in another, even just like from a financial standpoint, what they spent, I don't know the exact numbers, but you know, they did a lot of location shooting in LA and other places for season 1 and 2, whereas it was basically a self-contained set on the Titan.
yes. Uh-huh.
So like I want to say it was speculated they did it for like 60%. Season 3's budget was like 60% of what season 2's was.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I'm like, okay, you're giving us exactly what we wanted. You're saving money, and like it just now. And obviously, they can't do anything with a current writer's strike,
Yes.
but like, I mean, you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, really.
No, that's very true, because that's, you know, as a Star Trek fan, that's what I've said. Like, okay, you have everybody now from like really young people, you know, young people rediscovering, you know, TNG and the old shows and loving them. And what I've always said is that the original Star Trek is simple. Like it didn't always rely on like huge special effects and like massive sets. It was very enclosed and soundstage and everything, but people loved it and they still love it now. And so, like, exactly what you were saying with season 3 of Picard, like, you know, that you don't always have to have like this massive, huge thing. Like, you can sometimes go with quiet character moments on a soundstage and people will eat it up. People will like it, you know? And so, like, I feel like going forward with Star Trek, like you said, you know, you can give people what they want. You can go with a cheaper route, you know, with different aspects. And, you know, and I think, you know, I think people would absolutely love it. And one funny thing too that I read online when you were mentioning Data and Data meeting his quasi family, and somebody said, like, I imagine, you know, the conversation went that Terry Matalas, you know, called, you know, Brent Spiner and said, like, you know, we're bringing you back for season 3. And Brent would have been like, okay, you know, who am I playing? And Terry was like, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Because I absolutely loved that he got to play everyone, basically.
And like within like 5-second snippets, he was jumping. Like the man, Brent Spiner's a severely underrated actor.
He is so good. Oh my
He's
gosh.
so good, and he's happy because he doesn't have to spend like 2 hours in makeup anymore.
Yeah.
He just gets touched up and he's good to go. It's like, and I think Michael Dorn even said it's like with the advent of better technology and techniques, like I think they have a more silicone based. It's like what used to take him like 4 hours a day, he's like done in like an hour, and he's ready to go. He's Worf, which I'm like, wow. I mean, from where we were back in, you know, the Next Generation heyday to now is just incredible.
It is incredible because, like, yeah, the makeup effects were fantastic, you know, over the course of the season, and especially, you know, this season was just so good because, yeah, Worf looked fantastic. You know, Brent looked amazing. You know, and I loved it. I liked that they were able to incorporate his aging into it. I liked that. I thought that went really well. And it was
Absolutely.
a nice, what is it? Juxtaposition to season 1, you know, where they kind of had him de-aged, you know, to look like the original Data. So I liked that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the possibilities are absolutely endless, when it comes to what Trek could do next. And, and for those of you who are listening who may not know, we're already getting a Star Trek Academy TV show. Now that hasn't been announced, whether it's live action, whether it's, animated, whether it's set in the future or the past, nobody exactly knows yet, as far as I know, unless there's been something recent.
It's been confirmed it's Discovery era.
Okay,
and
so it is the Discovery era. Okay.
I think it's live action.
Okay.
I think, but I don't know if that actually ever was confirmed.
Okay, so I mean that'll be interesting. I mean, definitely as a Trek fan, I will at least give it a chance. I will try it. But yeah, definitely hoping that after this writer strike is over and everything, I'm hoping that we'll get some announcements of what's coming next. I have a feeling we probably will get some announcements after the conclusion of season 2 of Strange New Worlds, is what I'm guessing.
I would look for September 8th. So whatever, that's the day the Star Trek the original series premiered. So that's normally they normally do like fall announcements then. We didn't really get much on First Contact Day, but on Star Trek Day I would look for something. And if not then, maybe New York Comic Con in the fall.
That would make a lot of sense, I think, because we have that, because we have Strange New Worlds concluding somewhere in the July, month, somewhere in there, end of July. Then we have, Lower Decks in August. That'll be concluding probably right around the time, of Star Trek Day. So I think you're probably right on the money there of when we'll get something.
And it just seems like they've got a lot of irons, or at least ideas in the fire. I want to bring this up. We had an off-topic discussion with some friends in our group chat the other day. We've got a Paul Wesley's Kirk. We've got Ethan Peck as Spock. We've got Celia Rose Gooding as Uhura. At this point, by the time we've only got to cast 4 more people for the. We've already got Nurse Chapel as well. So basically, 4 more of the mains from Star Trek the original series. So if we get 3, 4, 5 years more of Strange New Worlds, why not do Phase 2, or the second 5-year mission, Kirk's Enterprise?
That's very true. Like, why? Honestly, why not?
Like, why not? So, Terry Metalis, Alex Kurtzman, if you're listening, we're here for it. So,
I would be absolutely down for that. That would be incredible.
And if you look, I think Paul Wesley's in his either late 30s, early 40s. It's going to take a couple years. You need to let Pike have his run. And in no way would I ever say I love Pike. I love his hair. I love everything about it. So Pike's Peak should be here to stay, as they call it. But why not? And then, hey, if you want to do a spinoff where somehow they can bring Pike back, it's Star Trek. We can do all sorts of things. So then you could have again so many possibilities. The ages will match up. We briefly mentioned earlier something about was rumors of a huge crossover with Burnham and Spock and Picard and Kirk and Archer and basically Avengers Endgame level type event. And I mean, honestly, if you think about it, one of the first shared universes is Star Trek.
It's true. It is.
So it would be, again, you and I are definitely here for it. I think a lot of people would be, but it's, again, pardon the pun, but there are so many possibilities and I'm here for it. And,
it's true because, Star Trek is one of the few franchises and series that recasts have been widely accepted by the fan base, of classic characters, that people don't mind, they're these iconic characters being recast, which has just added, like you said, even more possibilities.
They've done whoever the Trek casting directors have been really the whole J.J. Abrams reboot. Now, granted, they ended up if they weren't A-listers at the time, they've become A-listers.
Yeah.
That cast was incredible. But I remember when they announced Paul Wesley was Kirk, I'm like, actually I can kind of see it now. He's a lot thinner than William Shatner was back in the day, but you know what? There's been enough time travel shenanigans. Robert April was white in the animated series. He's black now. That's in the grand scheme of time travel, that's really not that big of a jump.
No,
so maybe Kirk's genes are a little different and he looks a little different. And again, it's Hollywood. You just got to take it for what it is. So,
No, absolutely. And I think that that is kind of the, what you can use, with all of the time, Star Trek more than any other franchise has had the time travel shenanigans. And, and it can be used to basically explain almost anything of change, like you said, changing up actors, changing up maybe slight changes of events, or something. Um, and so yeah, I'm definitely, I am all here for a phase two. I think that would be incredible. And I definitely feel like somebody in the Trek world of the creation side of it maybe has some sort of inkling, maybe, or something, because there's definitely a reason they brought in Wesley's Kirk. Like I feel like there's definitely a reason for that, because they didn't have to do that.
He's too well known of an actor to just
Mhm.
bring in for like
Yeah.
a recurring. There was a rumor, I had forgotten this till you actually just said it, about a Starship Republic, which in some of the beta canon in the books, Kirk, I think it's the first ship. Kirk's an ensign on that ship, but whether it's the first one he serves on or not, but he serves on the Republic. But hey, I mean, like we said, whatever they give us, we're going to watch. Um, and they seem to be hitting it out of the park, so I'm going to trust them and watch it
Mhm.
regardless.
Yeah, it's true. Like there was, I don't know if you've seen the meme, but there's like this one meme where it's this guy in like a fast food restaurant, and he's like eating, and he has headphones in, and he's on his phone, and in the background you see this huge group of people all fighting. And I saw a meme version where it was the guy sitting there quietly, and it said like Star Trek absolutely hitting it out of the park, and then it was like every other franchise of like people fighting. It was like, oh, and I felt that
That's
was very
perfect.
accurate.
It's. I think you sent that one. It was either you or another one of our buddies. It shows. It's an older Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Mark
Mhm,
Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Billy D. Williams, and I don't think Chewbacca's in the background, but he should be.
mhm.
It's what Star Wars fans wanted, and it's clearly
Oh,
photoshopped. And
mhm.
then we get the shot of the next gen cast on the bridge of the Enterprise D, and it's what Star Trek fans got. And I'm
Oh,
like,
so true. Mhm,
it, like could not hit the nail on the head
mhm.
any more perfectly.
That is absolutely true. Yes, I remember seeing that, and that was exactly how I felt. And it was just another reason why I was so grateful for this season, and just like, I would say 90% of like new Trek as a whole. It just, it's been giving me everything that I've wanted as a fan. And it's been, it's giving me great paths of what the future is going to look like, and I couldn't be happier.
We're getting new storylines, continuations with beloved characters.
Mhm,
It's basically like a love letter to the fans,
mhm,
but it's adding so much more to like what's already established. Like we're getting deeper storylines, we're getting more backstory, and it's just enriching everything. I
yeah,
think
yeah, it's the epitome of what they said of how filmmakers, that they are supposed to give their audiences something that they didn't know they wanted. And that's what I feel is Star Trek, especially nowadays, that they're seeing what we want, but they also are figuring out what we didn't know that we wanted, and giving us that. Oh,
exactly.
mhm. Because that was the same with season three of Picard. Honestly, like I didn't know I wanted 70% of what I ended up getting.
I couldn't agree more.
Hmm.
I mean, I think you nailed it.
Hmm. Man, well, that was definitely a very fun conversation. Just wrapping up, not only the third season, but this entire series, and touching on kind of the future of everywhere that we're going to be going with this franchise, and hopefully the franchise that we'll be going on. That also will be watching when I'm 90. So, um, but man, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on and joining me. Enjoyed our conversation absolutely immensely. It was a lot of fun delving into all this stuff.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me. This has been an absolute delight, and I hope we can have more in the future.
Mhm. Well, for all of you listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did having it. And definitely feel free to share these 2 episodes, part 1 and 2. If you came in on this episode and you missed part 1, definitely go back and check that one out. And be sure to like, share, and definitely subscribe to the podcast. That helps us out a lot, helps the reach, and helps me to continue delivering this kind of content for you guys. So thanks for joining us for Under the Lens, and be on the lookout for a new episode coming soon.